It's a complex humanitarian and security issue for the US, and one politicians can't seem to agree on. Well, for more on that, I'm joined by Robert Schlesinger. He's president of Schlesinger Communications here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So as we saw, this latest round of talks essentially crashed and burned. So a lot of people are wondering, just how long is this shutdown going to go? What are your thoughts?
Well, as we saw, the president stormed out, had a tantrum today. So it's unclear. What it's going to depend on is at what point do enough Republicans start to feel the political pain of the shutdown. You've got, we just saw, you've got federal workers who are not getting paid, but it's not just federal workers. It's farmers who are not getting agricultural support. It's businesses that can't do IPOs or mergers. There's all these effects across the economy. And already at least 5 Republican senators have said, you know what, let's just reopen the government. As that number grows, there becomes more pressure on Trump, and the wild card is, does he at some point declare a national emergency and just say he's going to do it himself?
Now, we certainly saw both President Trump and other congressional leaders take their views to the American public. We saw with his speech. What was the goal of his speech, and how effective do you think it was?
The goal was to, as you say, take his case to the American public, and it was also to sort of shore up his somewhat flagging support among congressional Republicans. It was not an effective speech. I thought the most telling statistic I saw today was that the audience for Schumer and Pelosi was actually bigger than the audience for Trump, which is unheard of in US politics. The president wields the bully pulpit. The president has the loudest microphone in the room. He never has the smaller audience. The fact that people are tuning him out, but not tuning out politics, should be a real alarm for the White House.
Now, there did seem to be somewhat of a softening of the tone. Obviously, he didn't mention that national emergency route as something that he was going to take, at least in that speech, revived it later on, though. So in terms of businesses who are really watching this, not just the federal workers, but the domino effect, just how widespread could this be, and what does that mean for the U.S. economy?
Well, the domino effect is absolutely right, because the U.S. economy is 70% consumer spending. So any money that's not going to federal workers, any money that's not going to landlords because their low-income housing agreements weren't processed by HUD before the government shut down, any money that businesses aren't able to raise because they're not able to do stock offerings because the SEC is shut down, that is money that's not getting out into the economy, and that then it's not a linear effect. It's not something where it's twice as bad if it's 2 weeks and it's 3 times as bad if it's 3 weeks. It grows as people are unable to deal with the extended lack of money. So right now, I think the statistic I saw was we're looking at probably about 1/10 of GDP, a 1/10% of GDP lost. Give it another 3 weeks, that's not 3/10, that becomes a much larger figure. So hopefully we won't get there.
And we already saw the Fitch rating agency weighed in saying that the U.S. risks damaging its U.S. AAA rating. Now, why does that matter? Well,
because the U.S. is the standard of you know, the dollar. The dollar is the standard of the world. The U.S. the government, people rely on the U.S. government. It's going to pay its debts. What Fitch was talking about was, even after we get past this, the next big thing is the debt ceiling. The debt ceiling is currently suspended, and it's suspended until March 1st. After that, the Treasury can use what are called extraordinary measures to sort of move money around on paper to keep the bills getting paid. That probably goes into mid to late summer. Now, if the debt ceiling isn't raised by then the U.S. could start defaulting on debts, which would cause a global economic and political catastrophe. The good news is that the House Democrats reinstated a rule that said if they pass a budget, it automatically raises the debt ceiling if necessary. That doesn't apply to the Senate, so the Senate would still have to raise the debt ceiling.
Right.
And of course, no one knows what the president's going to do. No one knows if he even understands the potential problems, and he's demonstrated a willingness to be sort of a political terrorist and take hostages and basically threaten to damage the political system in the country if he doesn't get his way. So it's a very
So then
dangerous time.
So then just very quickly, with so much hanging in limbo, then you have the shutdown, you have the president going to visit the border, you have the debt ceiling argument that's going to be coming up, and you also have an international audience who may be affected by all this. How do you think this is going to be received by a global audience?
I don't think either globally or domestically it's going to be received well. This is, you know, people don't like uncertainty and ignorance from the head of the largest economy in the world. It's not going to play well. It doesn't help the global economy. It doesn't help the U.S. position in the global economy or around the globe. And you know, it actually can get worse. That's the scary part.
We'll certainly have to watch and see. Doesn't seem to be an end in sight, at least for now. Thank you so much to Robert Schlesinger, President of Schlesinger Communications.